Welcome to the Power of Meditation. I am Kelly Blazer and I'm here with Nicola Amadora. Thanks for being here, Nicola.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here all the way from Europe, Italy. And we're going to talk about many things, specifically relationship and awakening and shadow. We have lots of great material for this interview. I just want to give people a little bit of a sense of who you are. So, very abbreviated bio. So you have a PhD in transpersonal psychology, and you are a non-dual spiritual teacher, and you work all over the world at different retreats and workshops and trainings. You're also a Hakomi therapist and a living connection teacher. So you do trainings in a process called Living Connection that are really about relationship, leadership, and awakening. You're a Dharma teacher from Spirit Rock, and you focus very much on finding a feminine approach to non-duality, specifically when you're working with women, but we'll talk more about what that even means. Anything I've missed?
Oh, you could go on and on, but I think this is plenty.
Okay, great, wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your work with couples and people in relationship in general as a therapist, and what you see the greatest kind of challenges there are for people who are on a spiritual path, and then we can get into your approaches to helping people heal and wake up.
So if you don't mind, Kelly, we can take it even be a little bit broader in terms of applying it to all kinds of relationships. So yes, there's the couple, the intimate, very intimate, but at the same time, I want to bring it also to any form of relating, because we are constantly in relationship. Indeed. And how our spiritual practice can take us even deeper. So the times now are so essential that we learn how to relate in ways that help us all to awaken and that help us to embody who we are in the streets of this, because I see there's such a gap in the spiritual field and in the meditation field. People can sit on a meditation cushion, but then their partner comes in the evening home and the next fight begins, and you don't know how to talk to each other. You don't know how to resolve your issues. And the biggest longing that I see in people is like they keep saying, I want more connection, whether it's with my partner, with my friends. And I feel this connectedness when I meditate. And yet at the same time, when I start relating, it feels it goes out the window and it doesn't transfer into my everyday relating. So this is where I feel is a real gem for us, because we can use, and I mean in quotes, we can use our relationships as a way to deepen into who we are and to wake each other up. Not trying to change anybody, but to help each other to because in the moment when we're in this we field, something bigger is happening and something more is possible than when I'm sitting alone on my cushion. Mm-hmm. And I think the meditation practice is the basis for it.
And what does it mean to take a non-dual approach to addressing your relational world?
Well, you're diving right in there. So when we sit together in how we can actually relate is to see you are me, I am you. Yeah, there's like, even though you are very different in your personality, and it's very important to honor that, not to go into this woo-woo, we are all one and we should be the same, but rather to see your particularity as a human being is the expression of the whole universe before me right now. And then my uniqueness gets to be there too. And then we sit together, for example, on a couch, and we explore what is happening between us right now. And the question is always, what is alive between us right now? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I wonder, as we have been discussing a little bit before we hit record, there is this phenomena where we become blind to that. You know, we easily become blind to our connection. We become blind to the oneness between us and focused on the uniqueness and the separateness instead. And part of that is what people think of as, you know, projection, or there are things that we cannot see, which sometimes is called shadow work. So can you give us a little bit of an understanding of what that means from your perspective?
Yeah. So the beauty is, we sitting here together, 4 eyes see more than 2. Yeah. So whatever in your consciousness field is happening, you can see only maybe 50%, 40%. You can maybe, you know, I can know myself as a kind person, but I may not see the unkind part in me. Yeah. So when we, for example, have a conflict, then the other parts of me start showing up. Maybe. Yeah. So this is, for example, this is what everybody starts to encounter. You feel so one, you feel so connected, you feel the love, especially in a wonderful beginning, the beginnings of a relationship. The personality starts marching in. And the personality is, I do not like to call it ego. This word doesn't, because it has a judgment around it. I call it more, here's the personality, the vessel of how we embody our spirit. And so it comes in, and then you like potatoes in the evening, and I may like salad. So now I'm giving a really stupid example here, but I'm just going to make it basic. You insist we're going to have a potato dish. I'm going to insist that we're going to have a salad. And I don't like potatoes, and you don't like salad. So then often what starts happening, one says like, well, you know, you always cook potatoes. No, I don't. And so that's the moment when we encounter friction. This is the moment where we can actually use our practice to stop, and our deep dedication to be awake, to stop, to breathe, and then to really speak from a deeper place. What is happening right now in me? What is happening right now between us? And out of this, trying on a surface level, the invitation is really to go deeper. Okay, what's happening between us now is friction, yeah? And then the other thing is, we can go deeper and say, you can say, you know, maybe for you, what comes up is you feel deep down that nobody really cares about you, or that you don't matter. So we're going to the core, yeah. This takes a bit of a daring, and it takes a willingness. Maybe for the other person, it is like, I am never heard. Yeah, that it's a wounding that starts coming up, and these are shadow places. I mean, shadow doesn't just mean wounding. Shadow means also the light. You might be hiding from your greatness. You know, but let's say in this instance where the wounding starts coming up, this is where we often have conflict with each other. Because what really is talking is the wound. So instead of brushing it aside and saying, oh, this is just human stuff, we don't go above it, we go right into it. Because this is our crucible to fully embody our awakening. Our crucible would be to say, I would say to you, you know, I really don't feel loved in my life. Or you might say, oh, I really feel unworthy. That's what's coming up. And we bring a loving awareness. Not about that. It's about that we include it, that we say yes to it. That I say yes to your humanity, I say yes to mine. We bring it together, and then there is a vulnerability. And this vulnerability, when we're really open to it, allows us to fully awaken to our essence, to our the pearl is in the lotus. It's right in the most vulnerable place. And if we can learn to be with this and to love each other through this, the lotus begins to open. And there's the connection.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm quite curious about if there are particular tactics that can help people to kind of deal with the immense vulnerability that it requires to actually language that stuff. Because in my experience, when we meditate, we can touch into these feeling states that are really vulnerable, really raw. We can kind of touch into these wounded places, but because we're not in the languaging mind, we just open up a space inside of ourselves to receive and be with and kind of nurture and heal those places. But then when we're in relationship, in order to connect with the other, we're kind of bound by, not exclusively, but we enter into these spaces where we're relying upon language. So can you talk about tactics around kind of the specifics of how we language things that can help people to both express the vulnerability but not get further constrained by it?
Beautiful. It's such an important question, what you're bringing up. And what we talked in the beginning about the non-violent communication is part of the ability, training your capacity to express it. So one of the things would be to really learn, this is refraining. This is the practice of refraining from blaming. You are at fault that I feel crap. Yeah. This is one pillar, and for the vulnerability, there's an enormous defense mechanism. We all have that. And then you can sit on your meditation cushion as you describe it, and we can bring kindness to the places that are hurting and awareness. But in relationship, because relationship was the error that pierced our heart from the very beginning often, yeah? Relationship from the view of the wounded place is the danger, is the enemy, yeah? So to navigate this, we need language, and we need mature language that allows the flower more to open rather than to contract. It would be to take full responsibility for your own experience. It's at fault, and I'm not at fault. It's just the experience of there's hurt. The key then to express is to simply say, I'm feeling hurt, and nothing more to say, or I feel angry, or I feel my wound is coming up. And to even if you allow yourself to feel the energy of anger, to fully own it and say, I feel angry right now. And it's not you or it. So that's one small key, but that's an essential key.
As you're speaking, it brings up a question for me that I think has been kind of jostling around in my mind for a long time. And it is that, some people call it conditioning, like egocentric karma conditioning or conditioning. And some people call it the wound. And in my experience, like if we think of these places that we go that often get facilitated by a partner or the triggers of a relationship, if we think of these places that we go as conditioning, then there can be a tendency to observe it as something that's happening outside the self that has kind of a dark quality to it, that we have to actually be suspicious of our conditioning. But if we think of it as a wound, then there's this feeling of like, oh, I've been wounded and therefore I need to sort of coddle myself. And there can be a little bit of a seduction to feeling as if we've been wounded. So I'm just wondering where you would land on that. I know that's a great big dichotomy, and I'm sure there's a middle space.
Yes, there is actually. I think it's beautiful that you're bringing it up, and I would say I wouldn't go to either one of them. I would say this is my humanity, and this humanity is basically asking for the love and the awareness we need. And if I express, you can even express it in such a way, this is even more finer, to say, I'm aware of there is a need in me for love, yeah, or I'm aware of there is a friction between us right now, and it's completely non-judgmental. There is not this conditioning is a thing we need to get over with, or this wound we need to heal. This is not about that. Even we're going on a much higher level. We're saying this in this grand field of consciousness wants to be included in the love. All wants to come home. And we're taking in a radical approach by saying this too, even if this never changes, who cares? This is included. That's all that wants to happen. It's like the consciousness fragmented itself. And then in relationship, it shows up and it says, me too, I want to be part of this too. And we say, no, that's my conditioning. Or, oh God, that's my poor wounding, I have to take care of it. No, this is life saying, bring me home to love. Bring me home.
Yeah, and I think, the way that you're talking about it, when we can receive it with a kind of a willingness, like a willingness to bring all the parts of oneself into the light, there's a lot of beauty in that. And I wanted to just kind of go back a little bit to something that you briefly touched upon when we were speaking about shadow, because I'm not sure it's something that's kind of in popular understanding. And you said, you said something like, shadow is also includes the beautiful, like the kind of beautiful, brilliant parts of ourselves that we haven't let through into the light. So can you just talk about that? And in my mind, it's really an important part of our practice to kind of let the positive shadow arise and get comfortable with that. And it can bring up a lot of stuff for people. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that. I mean, especially, in your seat as a teacher and a facilitator, like I'm sure you handled that or at least addressed it inside yourself.
I see it a lot when I work with people that there is some people are really good to go into the dark places and to look what they can heal or whatever. That's beautiful. But then what's often left out is to see, oh my goodness, what an incredible, beautiful being is here. And to really, that's the fear that many, I think almost everybody has, to see this incredible light that you are, this love that you are. And there is this place where it's like, oh my God, I mustn't allow this, because centuries of conditioning, cultural conditioning, is you mustn't shine this because you're going to get killed for it. Yeah. Your light, from the beginning of this world, we have trained each other, don't shine too bright. Don't stand too much in your power, because there is something inherent in this world, in this conditional world, where too much of the power is frightening to people. Like too much of the ocean power, and then a person too much in there, connected to the Shakti. Yeah, is. We hanged Jesus, and we killed many for this. And so in the shadow is, of course, our greatest gift, our greatest blessing, always hidden. And the fear of seeing that can actually, when we go back into relationship, when we sit together and we begin to see it with each other, like the place in me that is frightened, you are not frightened by it. If you are my companion here, you hold this with me, you keep seeing it, and if you do not waver, you keep seeing it, then something in me will crack open too at some point. That's how we help each other, yeah?
Yeah. In an ideal world, yes. And yes. I'm wondering, you said earlier that you like to call, instead of talking about ego, which obviously can have so much sort of judgment layered onto it, you like to just talk about the personality, the personality. And I think a lot about personality structure, because I've kind of studied a bunch of different systems of personality structure. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts as to that, and specifically how it shows up in partnership, and how we can work with that to ensure that we do hold each other in the light, as you were describing so beautifully.
Yeah, we can even say this is our human costume we're wearing. Yeah. And this structure, everybody has a different structure, and we are very complex in our structures, and then it's easy to, in relationship, to get lost in that. So it's this art of saying yes to your humanity, holding it lightly. This is, you are more than that. This is your costume, and I honor your humanity, and I love your humanity, and there is more to you. And so when the structure starts showing up, I mean, some people's structure is very, because I work as a therapist, is very complex, and especially when you have tricky ones like narcissistic structure, neurotic, I mean, everybody has some pieces of it. You cannot navigate those alone because there are too there's intense contractions around it. The learning to disidentify from it is really important, to say, yes, this is my structure. I like to always have the house perfectly clean. It's my control trip that I like to do. So the lightness, to bring this light, non-judgmental awareness to it, can already help in relationship, to just admit it and say, yeah, I love controlling. And sometimes I just can't help myself. Forgive me. When we get more lighter with those things, when we just bring them in and knowing that this is not the whole of you, then there's more humor, there's more together.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty hilarious. Anyone who has ever had to drive while I'm in the passenger seat has definitely seen my capacity to want to control everything, and it amuses me to no end. And luckily, I have a partner with a good sense of humor, so we can get through these things. So our control rackets, it's usually a bit of a technique to manage fear, and so obviously that helps. But I'm wondering, I would love for us to talk a little bit more about Hakomi, and like how you specifically use Hakomi in your work, and if there's anything that people could kind of get as a takeaway from this interview to help them in their relationships.
So Hakomi is very much relational based, because the wounding comes from relationships and also can be healed through it. Of course, you often need a therapist, or, and I combine Hakomi with the spiritual practice as well. So with the non-dual way. And I think what I want to suggest to people is, let me back up. Hakomi has also a beautiful way of bringing in your emotions, your mental body, your physical body, and your spiritual body, and how this is playing right now in relationship. The key is right now, And when we bring, for example, you want to really practice a little bit in your relationships to go deeper with each other and to connect. You can include in yourself, but also with your partner, all, the emotional body, the mental body, the physical, the somatic. And the key is to say, and what am I experiencing right now? And the key is right now, not what I experienced yesterday. Maybe the story from yesterday is evoking in me fear. Then I speak that and say, what I'm experiencing right now in my body is jittery. What I'm experiencing in my whole field is like, I'm noticing there's fear when I'm talking to you. I feel afraid. I don't know why I'm afraid. I just feel fear rising. And taking a breath, letting it all be there is the key. Allowing it all to be there without getting... And then for the partner to learn to just say, you know what, I hear what's going on for you in this moment, and I'm here with you. So the partner can bring in a missing experience to say, in the midst of your fear, there's somebody finally here who just can hold your hand. And it's very beautiful because it leads to a connectedness and a field of opening with each other that allows for so much love. So the next step would be not to process all the fear, but to just say, and what's going on now between us in this moment? As you heard my fear, as you said, I am here for you, is a beautiful, beautiful sentence. And when you fill it with presence and love, it just is, most people need only that. And then you can also look, what is happening between us in this moment as we're connecting this. What is love happening? Yeah. So you can go back and forth with your partner or with your friend of saying, the simple question is, what am I experiencing right now? And what are we experiencing in this field right now? And to bring in the Hakomi way, I bring in like giving that missing piece. Like, for example, I am here with you. Or I got you. Or, yeah, so the very simple sentences that touch to the core wound that we often have.
Okay. And it's sort of, it's just about the kind of reminding each other of our presence and our support, essentially.
Yes. Yes, without a long story, because there's many sentences you can use, but let's say we only use the I am here with you. That's the missing experience for most people on the planet.
Right. Yeah. And I like the focus also on the, this is what's happening right now, because obviously we get ourselves in a lot of trouble when we start to confuse the present moment with the whole sustained reality or the illusion thereof.
Yeah, and the explaining and the talking about things. So the invitation is really to drop into the present moment and drop into what's alive without judging anything, to transparently learn to communicate that without grabbing onto it. And then also to bring the presence to that place where the partner is in right now, or your friend is in, to just, because I have more space than you have when you're entrenched. Yeah? So I can bring not some clever advice or some how we fix the situation, but I go under it and say, hey, what I'm really hearing here is you're feeling afraid, and underneath you feel really vulnerable right now, and I'm there. I hold your hand here.
That's great. Yeah, it's and I'm wondering if you observe when you work with people that people in some way, even if they haven't been kind of trained in any sort of technique, do people kind of naturally and organically ever come to this kind of capacity to meet each other where they are? Or do you think that it's really actually fundamental that people go through sort of their like a training regimen? We often talk about meditation as like training the mind. So in work, in relationship, do we need to be trained?
In some ways it's the most natural way when you start learning to relate like this, but you have to, because we're so conditioned, we have to unlearn a lot, and we have to train. And meditation is a fundamental tool for that. Without meditation, I don't think you can go anywhere. But then you need to learn the tools for bringing it into relationship, communicating from this space. Because meditation really teaches you to become really present and also be able to navigate through anything that arises and be able to sit with it and open your heart through it all. So it's the foundation. The second piece is that, yes, you do need to learn some skillful means in order to navigate this on a whole other level in your relationships. But once people learn it, it's like incredible what the depth and the beauty that emerges from that. And the love and the connectedness and presence. So yes, you're right. The skills need to be learned.
Yeah, that seems to be my conclusion as well. Though at the same time, I also see that when the organic experience, the untrained organic experience of love shoots through, it's actually so much stronger than anything we've learned. So I think in some ways the two are, they're, you know, the bird wings of equal power. So I just want to remind people how they can find you. I mean, and specifically around this note around training. I mean, you do these living connection trainings for relationship and leadership, and you have a home base in Europe now, and also in the Bay Area, and you've been traveling, at least recently, like all over the world. So I want to remind people that they can come and find you if they go to nicolaamadora.com. Also, you've provided us with a lovely free gift, and that will be available to everyone in their daily email. There's a meditation that they can experience called You Are Loved. And you also have a tremendous amount of free offerings on your website. There's many Dharma talks and meditations, so really no shortage of generosity on your part, putting it all into the world. So thank you so much. And just if there's any last words that you want to offer, I invite you to do that. Anything you want to leave our viewers with?
I want to invite everyone to actually see relationship as a spiritual practice and to start bringing it into this world. What the gems you find in the practice, but also the challenges you find, so that you do not need to travel alone, and that we can do this together, and really to dare to go and let the layers drop, so you can drop into who you truly are and live that in this world. And I thank you for listening, and thank you, Kelly, as well.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Take good care.
Thank you.